Hi, so I'm going to be giving you my top 10 chess players. This is purely my opinion and my experience watching these players compete at the highest level. And we're going to start off with Magnus Carlsen at number one. He was the world champion for the last several years. He's never lost a world championship match, and he stepped down because he didn't want to defend his title anymore after defeating Jan Nepomniachtchi in the last World Championship. He basically crushed him by like a few games, and um, and he's like, I just don't want to do this anymore. So he's the enigmatic world champion, um, somewhat flawless, but starting to show some chinks in his armor, where if he ends up unraveling, um, we could all look back at the Hans Niemann thing or the tournament he just lost to a 2500 in and and like mention someone wearing a watch like chess is very hard on the mind, and it might be a wise decision. Like that's a very Magnus thing to do, to just not even defend his title, because now he doesn't have to worry about losing it, and that frees him up to play well in other tournaments and try to get his rating to 2900. So uh you know, depending on what his future is, we can point back at these moments as like making or breaking of him. But he's already a made man. He's basically like LeBron James, but even better, and he's been um, cementing himself as the greatest player of all time, and he's the highest rated player of all time. Um, and no one's ever reached a rating peak as high as his 28, you know, closer to 2900 if you're rounding. So I think it was like 2886 at some point. For number two, and this is like the best players right now, in my opinion. So today, if they all had a death match, Magnus would be the favorite. And then my favorite. And then in number two, most likely to succeed, I would say Hikaru Nakamura right now is has the best chance of beating Magnus. Like when I watched them play together in the Blitz Championship, I think it was this year, that was the most hyped I've been to watch chess lately. Um, so those are the two guys. Like, if I could have any world championship match, I would want it to be Magnus Hikaru. Hikaru is a streamer and made his money streaming and doesn't have to make money playing chess. So he also has the monkey off his back. So Magnus is playing free, not having to defend his crown, and Hikaru is also playing free, and he's doing even better in chess since he started streaming. So COVID kind of he reinvented himself when streaming got really popular, and he's just insanely good. I've seen him do things that are just amazing. So he's my number two. Um, let's keep going. Number three, I have Jan Nepomniachtchi. Now, you'll notice there are TCH, TCH. Like, I feel like that's kind of unnecessary. But that's how you spell his name. And Nepo is on fire. Like, when he is good, he's one of the best I've ever seen. Um, he recently lost, he won the candidates, but because Magnus didn't. So Magnus and Jan played a world championship match. Magnus beat him, and then Jan um, wanted to try again. So he went to the candidates again. The candidates, basically how chess works is there's the world champion, and then there's a bunch of tournaments throughout the year, and whoever does all the best players from all the tournaments, um, earn a spot at a candidates tournament. And the candidates tournament is all the best players besides the world champion. And the winner of that tournament earns the right to challenge for the world championship. And Jan won the candidates 2 years in a row cleanly, and he was annihilating people. Like he was like, 11 out of 13 or something. And then he, instead of getting to play Magnus again, Magnus said, if unless Firouzja wins, which is this young Iranian guy, unless Firouzja wins, I don't even want to play because why should I defend my title against the same guy I just destroyed? Like what's the point? What do I have to gain? Um, so Magnus steps down, which means that second place in the candidates um, gets to play the first place of the candidates in the new to determine the new world champion because Magnus is volunteering to give up his crown. So then the world championship um, was topsy turvy. Ding ended up pulling it out in the last game. But I have him ranked below Jan because I think Jan kind of beat himself and he'll be back. And he's a little bit better, in my opinion. But you got to give Ding credit because basically the point of chess, like the object of chess, is to be the world champion. And all the tournaments are kind of irrelevant unless you're qualifying for the candidates. And then you have to win the candidates. That's the most important tournament by far, besides the world championship. And, you know, you don't want to show all your cards. You kind of want to save your best opening tricks for the candidates and the world championship. So that's why winning it all really means you earned it. So I give Ding credit. But then there's this guy, Fabi. That's why Fabi is below Jan and Ding, is because when it matters most, Fabi has won the candidates and he has challenged Magnus and he tied Magnus in every game until the tiebreaker and then he crumbled. But Magnus does that to everyone in tiebreakers, so um, it's understandable. But um, just right now, Fabi's making a comeback. Ding is kind of like in hiding as the world champion who doesn't really play tournaments. And then Jan is also kind of in hiding because he's already earned a spot automatically by losing the world championship. He gets the right to play in the candidates again, so he doesn't need to play tournaments. Hikaru just qualified by winning or coming in second in the Grand Swiss to Vidit. Um, anyway, then we have number 6. Oh, but real quick about Fabi. When I first started following chess, one of the first tournaments I watched was the candidates that Fabi won, and he was just demolishing people. So, Jan and Fabi are like the two best players I've seen, besides Magnus, as far as dominating in their when they're on. But Hikaru is just really dangerous right now, and Ding's the world champ. So they're all mixed in together. Then we have Alireza Firouzja. I personally haven't seen it from Firouzja yet. The main reason he's on this list is because Magnus called him out as his only real threat. And Alireza is the youngest 2800 ever, beating Magnus's record. So I think Magnus is looking at him not as someone who can fight him now, but as someone who will catch up and pass Carlsen as he gets better and Carlsen declines potentially in the future. But he kind of has these other guys' number, but Firouzja, I guess, somewhat scares him. But really, Magnus stands alone, and he's always the favorite. And Magnus, when he's having a bad game and he's on a bad day on a bad tournament, is still usually winning the tournament. So it's just a matter of like, does he win it like 15-0, or like does he barely win and say I played bad today? But he's almost always in the finals and winning. So Perugia has very poor results sometimes. Um, he's getting better, more consistent, but he's not that great. But basically, I would say he's in tier one just because Magnus is putting him in tier one. And so these are the best six players. Any one of them could become world champion again. Like if Magnus felt like doing it again, he could. Hikaru, I could see. Nepo, Ding is. Fabi deserves it. And then Ferrugia could be. Then we have the second tier in my top 10. And that would start with Wesley Zhou. So, and Wesley is a very crafty player who will often find ways out of things. Like he will just make good decisions under pressure. Um, with Black, he'll get like a winning position, or he'll transition into a defendable end game. Um, he's just very wily and crafty and good. Um, uh, but he's also kind of like cannon fodder for like these other guys, because I think Magnus played him recently and beat him like. I've seen Wesley beat Magnus. He's one of the players who can beat him, but I've also seen Magnus just completely plow through Wesley like he isn't even there. So I think there is a tier break between Wesley and the other guys. Then we have Anand. Anand was the world champion before Carlsen, and he was like an undisputed heavyweight world champion. And then Carlsen comes in as a young kid, barely wins the candidates, and then beats Anand in like this. That's like a famous world championship because it was Magnus's. He's like the Mozart, taking down like the establishment and establishing himself as at like in his 20s. And Anand, to his credit, came back and re-challenged. He won the tournament. Like if you're the world champion, you have all these advantages. So if someone comes and beats you, and now they're the champion and you're just not, you have to win the candidates against all the other best players in the world to even play the world championship again. And Anand won the candidates again, and then played Carlsen and lost again. So he didn't go out down without a fight, but uh, he's retired since then. But really only because Carlsen, like if Carlsen didn't come in and dethrone him, he might still literally be the world champion. That's how good he still is. So not in his prime, but I'm putting him on my top 10 because I think in any game, any one game, he's deadly. He's the champ for a reason. I forgot to change this to number 9. This guy's name is Shakhriyar Mamedyarov, and he is in the second tier for sure. Like this guy's retired. This guy is the top of the second tier, and then this guy, I don't think he's a threat to become world champion, but he played probably the best chess game I've seen in the last 5 years was played by him, where he literally sacrificed all his pieces and it's his immortal game. And he doesn't play like that every game, but I like his fighting style, and so I'm putting him in my top 10. And then to close out the list, we got Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. He also has very inconsistent tournament results, but he did win one of the most recent ones. I saw him play. He won first place and beat Magnus in like Blitz or something. Um, most of these guys, when they win a tournament, Magnus is getting second. Like if Whereas when they lose a tournament, like when Magnus loses, it's second place. And when these guys lose, they're like at the bottom of the tournament sometimes. Um, but Bobby's on fire right now. He's rated right like close to Carlson in the 2800s, and then but I'm putting Nakamura at 2, and then that's my top 10. If I have to say, uh, well, if you want me to say more, let me know. But it's my top 10, and let me know in the comments what your top 10 is. Thanks. Bye.